Oliver.
And I'm Aidan.
And this is the third episode of That
Crazy Music
Show! Unfortunately, Matilda can't be with us today, but we're going to power on anyways. I know she'll be proud. Today we're talking about musical games again. And today we have a couple of different approaches for this episode. I will be choosing certain limitations, as well as Aidan's also going to be taking limitations. My limitations are trying to compose music with specific note limitations. So what about you, Aidan? What are you going to do?
I'm doing financial limitations. So everything I used apart from my computer and MIDI controller is free. So I used GarageBand as my DAW. And all of the sounds.
What's a DAW?
Digital audio workstation.
Okay,
Oliver.
phew. Oh man, I was scared there for a second.
And all of my sounds come from Spitfire Labs, which are free VSTs.
Nice,
yeah.
Man. And for me, my melodic limitation. I did to compose something with just 4 notes and. Specifically, I chose 4 notes that were chromatically next to each other. So going C sharp, D, E flat, and E. And only use those notes in making a composition. And the way that I could make that more interesting, because with a really limited choice of melodies, I thought that one way that you can make it more interesting would be to add some extended techniques. So I use some harmonics on the instrument. I also used big ranges, and also I found some ways I could voice chords that would be pleasing, and then also controlling dissonance by getting those minor ninths or those major sevenths in the chromatic notes, and emphasizing the dissonances as well as the possible consonances, and playing around with like time feel, articulation, and a bunch of other things. So like throughout my video, like we both have a composition that we're going to be airing today to show you our labors of these limitations, and throughout mine, at least, I'll show you, like I'll put in the corner or something, maybe here, what limitations I was doing, or what things I was using to make it sound like that. And what about you, Aidan? Like, is there anything?
We can add the name of the sample packs that I'm using.
Okay, yeah.
So you know exactly what instrument.
Yeah, exactly what you did. And like compositionally, did you have a direction, or how did you come up with your melodies? Because I've already heard it, and I have to say it's incredible. Like actually the string sound.
Yeah.
I thought that was coming out of like which I think it's is it Finale that has like some of the best sounding MIDI, or which one is Sibelius? Okay.
Has the note performer.
Right.
Which is an add-on that you can use to replace the MIDI sound, which makes it sound better.
Right.
But Spitfire Labs, it sounds, I think, better than that as well.
Even better than that. Yeah, I was thinking like, oh, this must be Sibelius, because like it sounds so good. And when he said it was free, I was like, oh my gosh, that's
mind
crazy.
blown, right?
Yeah, mind blown. So we hope you enjoy this, and we'll talk about some of what we did after as well. So without further ado, let's get to the music. And we're back. So, wow, Aidan, I really liked your piece. It was really, really creative.
Thanks,
And
man.
I like, it's just like when I was working with the four semitones, like there was definitely a couple of times when I was like struggling to create. So when I heard Aidan's piece, I was like, oh man, I don't know if mine's gonna stack up, but different limitations, right? So we'll see. But I think even if it isn't perfect, I think part of this is just exploring exploring some of the ways that you can compose and get out of your box. This would be really a great way to get out of your box. For example, if you haven't composed in a while and you are just like waiting for the inspiration or something. Like I remember one of my friends, shout out to Aaron Blewett, who is an amazing drummer and composer who studies with me at the same school. And when I was asking him how he comes up with these like really amazing compositions, then he was saying that honestly, it's just about practice and like getting it out there and just think about it. Like everyone's gonna have some pretty like half-rate compositions, but you learn from each one, and you start to get a feel for your strengths and how to build, and especially if you get feedback. So I highly recommend that you just try any limitations, because as we've all said on That Crazy Music Show, limitations breed creativity. So I highly recommend people to check this out and make their own limitations, but just to get into some of the things that I used to make this possible. I know I spoke a little bit off the top, but now that you have the piece in your ears, I wanted to shape the piece. I wanted to have a certain arc, a certain energy to the piece, and it starts with the harmonics at the very beginning, very intimate. There's just one instrument, electric guitar with some reverb, and then it totally builds to sort of this garage rock kind of sound with electric bass, electric guitar with a distortion, and then I've even got like the the glockenspiel. I was thinking like, why not, right? I have all these instruments hanging around my practice room, might as well use them. So I had the glockenspiel, my guitar, and actually to get the bass sound, I was using my Line 6 M9. This thing's like a tank, and it gets every sound from chorus, modulation, delay, reverb, pitch shifting, you name it. And I used it for the bass sounds on that track. So it definitely can hack like a electric bass sound. Like I'll still hire my electric bass friends because they sound much better, and they can play much better. But like when it comes to limitations, right? Especially during this past year and a bit of COVID, like we've all had to sort of work on our own energy and work with what we have. So making use of the equipment that you have is really the name of the game, and can really help when you learn to write, for example, bass lines. Because now that I've written like I came up with some bass line ideas, I was thinking, okay, like if I wanted to perform this piece or maybe write something in the future, and I wanted specific bass parts, I might have a better idea of how to direct that bass player, because now I have an insight as to, okay, this worked, this didn't work, and I did a couple takes to get there, but that's what it is. So getting that build, the not only volume and speed of like the like rhythmic divisions, but also instrumentation wise, it grew from solo to 3, and then that middle section where it breaks down into a sort of ambient kind of vibe, and you just have again guitar and bass. And once again, that was only 4 notes that I was using during that section, but you could see that if you start to put those notes together and make chords, then there could be some really interesting sounds. Like one of my favorite dissonances, and I've heard this from Schoenberg to Bartok to Ben Monder, is stacking intervals such as major sevenths, and it creates a very dissonant and sharp sound. And so when you're trying to create a certain mood in your music, like some people say that major is happy and minor is sad, so having certain cues that can help create a certain mood is really helpful. And it's sometimes hard when you're composing music to, uh, what does anxious sound like, or what does scary sound like, or what does excitement sound like, because you have to convert emotions into music. And so sometimes when you hear something that sounds like really dissonant or ominous, like I did when I heard the major sevenths, I made a note of it, thinking, okay, if ever I want to achieve that sound, then this would be a really great way to do that. So those were just some of the ways I made those four notes into a piece, and there's so much room for growth. But just with four notes chromatically next to each other, that's what I was able to do, at least in the day that I had to prepare for this episode. So what about you, Aidan? Like I really want to know how you went into composing your piece. So why don't you tell us a bit?
First of all, I was just telling you this a moment ago, but I'll say it in front of the camera.
Yeah.
It took me 2 listens to your piece to realize, because he didn't tell me what limitation he was using before he sent me his demo of his piece. It took me 2 listens to realize that you were only using 4 notes.
Yeah.
Because you were so effective in spacing them out and using them in a way that didn't sound dissonant, especially
Right.
four semitones next to each other. Right?
Yeah.
It's just a tone cluster at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was really impressed when I figured that out. So you handled that very well. But
Thank you.
onto my piece. My piece started with a picture one of my friends showed me weeks and weeks ago. I've been thinking about this for a few weeks, actually. It's a church on top of a mountain.
Okay.
And everything's covered in ice and snow.
Ooh. Do you know where this was? Or
I have no idea, but
Okay.
it looked like Iceland or Austria, somewhere
Right.
with really pretty mountains.
Yeah.
But so I went with this idea of like glassy and sharp and like open, but also very still.
Okay.
So you went for a very nice arc, and it worked well. And I'm going for almost the exact opposite.
Is that yeah.
So in my mind, I'm starting out with like these really still drones with very gentle piano on top, right? Very, very open voicings. You got a fifth, and then you got a sixth.
Right.
So you get a minor triad, but it's very spread.
In open voicing. Yeah.
And then you add the strings for a little bit more weight, right?
Yeah.
But there's still not a lot
My
of
favorite
movement.
part. Yeah.
And then after the strings come in, you get the organ, and that's where that's because of the church, right? The inspiration from the church.
Yeah.
So I have this idea of moving from the outside to the inside of the church.
Okay.
So you get this very solemn but very still organ music, and then you slowly come back outside, and once again you have piano, and then it fades out.
Wow. It sounds like perfect film scoring ideas, like to have a certain picture or landscape in your mind when you're trying to compose music can sometimes really help with your compositional discoveries or how it turns out after. So I really like that idea. Yeah. Wow.
Well, I've been listening to a lot of Olafur Arnalds. He's an Icelandic composer.
Okay.
He composed the music for the TV show Broadchurch,
Oh.
among many other things.
Okay.
But
I've heard about that one.
in that show, there's a lot of still landscapes, like still water. It takes place, I don't remember. I think it's maybe Scotland,
Okay.
or somewhere around there. But it's a lot of islands and a lot of still water.
Okay.
And so they're these beautiful landscapes, and the only thing that makes them interesting is the music,
I see.
which is also still but very beautiful. And he has this way of composing. It's minimalist, but it doesn't. You don't want more.
Interesting.
The way it's
just
small,
enough. Yeah.
but it's just enough.
Wow.
And often he uses like a string quartet and a piano, sometimes synthesizers, but it's very simple and very elegant and elevated. And that's kind of what I was basing. So this is the style of Olafur Arnalds. That's what I was basing my composition off
Okay.
of. So the groundwork was
yeah.
already set for me, right? I just had to follow the form and come up with my own material. And
So if we wanted to check out more of his music, would it be like the sound score? Sorry, the music for that TV show, or is there specific albums?
That's a good example.
Okay.
There's also a lot of his concert recordings available online.
okay.
YouTube. You can watch most of his concerts.
Oh, great.
In one of them, I can't remember what the concert's called. Maybe I'll put it in the description when I find it.
Yeah.
But he commissioned a software that takes MIDI information and puts it through a series of logic gates.
Ooh.
So what he does is the logic gates tell all of the notes to repeat randomly, but then it puts it through chance gates. So it only lets some of them through. And then, here's the kicker. It sends the repeated notes, which he calls raindrops, to two separate player pianos in the hall.
Oh my god.
So he plays a note on a keyboard, and then you hear it all around you with all these extra little raindrops, right? And it's not available for public, unfortunately, but it's so freaking cool.
Wow.
And there are ways to do this yourself with Eurorack or like MIDI scripters in your DAW. But his way is definitely the best. It's very effective.
What a concert! If you can go.
Oh man!
Wow. Well, that's just some of the insight. Like, I'm sure there are things that both Aidan and I forgot when we were talking about our compositions.
Your mallets.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yes. See, like, how could I forget? So why did he bring this up? In line with having, for example, like this one, the M9 go through, having the guitar go through this to get my bass sounds. I also did when I wanted to record the the glockenspiel, I quickly realized that in order to have the polyrhythm in sync, like I have a 3/2 like. So if I wanted to have that clearly, I would either need to have 2 mallets or record 2 takes, one for the 2 and one for the 3. And I don't have 2 mallets. I only have 1 mallet for my glockenspiel because, as you can imagine, it's like this children's like 1-octave glockenspiel that's in what is it? It's in G major. So chromatically is not an option for C sharp, D, E flat, and E. So I can only use D and E on the glockenspiel. But, talk about limitations breed creativity. So I was thinking, okay, a really cool thing would be to play octaves on it and to play like a 2/3 polyrhythm, because now you have a bunch of things going. You have like that timbre, first of all, that makes it three part arrangement. You have the range, and then of the octave, and now you have a polyrhythm. So there's a lot of like little tricks to try and get the arrangement more exciting, and like it always makes me laugh when I hear the glockenspiel come in. It's just like a fun instrument. But when I tried recording two times, like I had to think 3 but play while I was hearing the 2, and it threw me off for a loop. So instead of trying to do the polyrhythm in 2 separate takes, I actually grabbed like a pen, flipped it around, and it was a Sharpie. Yeah, it was a Sharpie. And I used a mallet in one hand and a Sharpie in the other, like the backside of the Sharpie, and used the Sharpie as a mallet. So, it wasn't perfect, but until now you probably didn't even think about it. So it just goes to show that, like,
I guess it works.
Yeah, I guess it works. Like, whether it's having a free platform like some of the ones you were using to get that sound, and like I still think the violin sounded amazing.
Yeah.
To have that, or even using a Sharpie as a mallet, like you use what you can get, and it's a really great way to get out of the box for sure. I just really wanted to get it in one take, so I made do. But thank you so much for sticking around to this point, and we're so happy that we're having viewers. I've heard feedback from a bunch of friends on Facebook and social media that they're enjoying the content. And please, if you have any recommendations for future episodes, then we're totally open to hearing your feedback. Just drop a comment in the comments below, and I'm sure we can find a way to incorporate it. Or, for example, if you have questions, we could do like a Q&A kind of episode where we address certain questions in an episode. I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And until next time, that was That Crazy Music Show. Thank you. Bye-bye.